Any accusation of non-consensual behavior is categorically false. Regardless of the inaccuracy of the reporting, but mindful of the political reality it will inflict, we are taking the time to reflect on the best path forward for the state that I love, the people that I love, the movement I belong to, and the goal of defeating Susan Collins.
Our next source helped bring this allegation to light. Cheyenne Hunt is a Democratic social media influencer and a lawyer, and she's helped surface allegations of sexual assault against lawmakers and candidates and has counseled survivors as well. Cheyenne, thanks so much for being with us. Racicot said that she changed her mind about going public after connecting with you. First, walk us through how that connection came about. Who reached out to who?
Right. I pulled my personal endorsement of Graham Platner after the New York Times piece was published. It became clear at that point to me that this person had...
The person who just ended Graham Platner is not a Republican. This is CNN, the source with Kaitlan Collins. Sitting right there is Cheyenne Hunt, the Democratic operative from a group called Reckoning Action, who once endorsed Graham Platner and then turned around and helped take Graham Platner out. This is the same Cheyenne Hunt who ran this exact play on Democrat Eric Swalwell and drove him out of Congress. And now Graham Platner is the next name on that list. So before we roll, ask yourself who is really doing the damage to Graham Platner here. And let's have a watch.
A record of misogyny and disrespecting women that was disqualifying from holding public office. I made that statement and we were immediately flooded with DMs and outreach from folks on the ground in Maine, organizers who knew multiple women with stories to tell, and they provided our contact information because they thought we might have some resources that could help. And that was ultimately how we got connected to Jenny.
Talk to us about how you walked her through the process of potentially coming forward with these details and what ultimately it was that led her to doing so.
Reckoning Action was formed to help survivors tell their stories and to overall fight back against the cultural resurgence of misogyny in American public life. And part of that is holding predators accountable and ensuring that we are not electing predators to positions of power. But when we meet with survivors, their agenda is first and foremost. That is it. That's all that matters. And so her level of comfort, her coming out of this feeling empowered and like she was heard and what she had to say was received well is truly the most important thing. And so we connected her with resources, pro bono legal counsel, communication support to think through how to tell her story in a way that made her feel comfortable with her boundaries. And that was really how that process got underway.
I want to ask you about something that the Platner campaign mentioned. They alluded to your involvement, alleging that Racicot's allegations are politically motivated. They said that the claims are coached and coordinated by out-of-state establishment operatives. Your response?
Establishment's funny. My prior job before leaving and starting Reckoning Action, I was one of the leading executive directors of one of the foremost progressive advocacy organizations in the country. So, you know, do a little Google search and you'll see that I'm pretty far from establishment. And I also think coached is what you say, and it's right out of the Trump playbook of deny, defend, deflect. When there's a credible allegation, we knew that this would happen, and we had to prepare all of the survivors that we've been working with for this, that they will say anything when their back is against the wall, even when there's credible allegations that have been corroborated by a source like CNN.
That word establishment comes with a connotation about some sort of financial gain. Have you been paid by any political group, or are you in any way financially benefiting from this work?
Absolutely not. Reckoning Action exists to be of service to survivors and to fight against misogyny. And so we, as a nonprofit, were formed to do this work. We are not being paid. We're not in cahoots with any other political campaign. That's not part of what we do.
So when you helped surface allegations of sexual assault against former Democratic Congressman Eric Swalwell, who denies the accusations against him, you said that Swalwell hired a private investigator to follow you. Have you had any similar experiences with the Platner campaign? Has there been any communication there?
So far, we have heard from the Platner campaign that outreach seemed to be in bad faith. It seemed like a fishing expedition, like they were looking for information on our survivors. We have really strong confidentiality policies, and obviously that was not given. But what I will say is, just like Eric Swalwell, we still live in a country where candidates are allowed to use donor dollars to attack survivors who come forward against them. Eric Swalwell is using donor dollars right now to pay that PI, to pay his criminal defense attorney defending him against rape allegations. So if you want to actually be part of a solution here, you should ask for your donation back if you gave Graham Platner any money, because that money could go to be using against survivors and to silencing survivors.
Wow. You mentioned your progressive politics a moment ago. Platner obviously running an anti-establishment campaign in Maine. If he drops out of this race, who would you want Maine voters to focus on as a challenger to Senator Susan Collins?
That's up to the state of Maine. The Maine Democratic Party has to nominate a replacement, someone that can champion the values that Maine voters made clear in this primary that they cared about. I endorsed Graham Platner because I agreed with his platform. I gave him a glowing endorsement, and I rescinded it obviously after things came to light. But I think they've made clear the kind of leader that they want. We need to make sure that that candidate can beat Susan Collins, because the voters in Maine should not have to choose between a predator and a traitor to women. They need a champion for women, and we need to make sure that that person is on the ballot.
Cheyenne Hunt, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Of course. Still.
Jenny Racicot is really believable, mainly because she is a self-professing Democrat. And people like Elizabeth Warren and Chuck Schumer, the senior Democrats, threatening to pull every dollar out of Maine over Graham Platner is not because they found a principle all of a sudden. It's because Graham Platner stopped polling. Graham Platner was this future of the movement right up until Graham Platner became a liability. So please tell me down below, were the Democrats protecting Graham Platner or protecting the seat? If you're new here, this is the channel that shows you what the mainstream media buries. So hit subscribe and drop a like. We're moving fast toward that next milestone, which is 5,000 subscribers. And if you want to support the channel, the link is down below. Hats off to every one of you exercising common sense. Appreciate you guys. God bless.